Please be seated. The court is now in session. The chamber would like to inform the parties and the public that for today's proceeding, we will hear the testimony of a witness, not a civil party. That is TCW 661, who will be first questioned by the prosecution. The chamber also invite a civil party, that is TCCP 64, as a reserved civil party. Mrs. Sakawati, could you report the attendance of the individuals and parties to the proceeding? Sakawati, Mr. President, all parties to the proceeding are present except the accused Ingsari, who is absent due to his health concern. However, based on his letter of waiver document E237, he requests to waive his direct presence in the proceeding of hearing the testimony of certain witnesses and civil parties, including TCW 661, who will be heard by the chamber this morning, as well as the reserved TCCP 64. Mr. Vacant, the International Defense Counsel for Kirsten Pawn, is absent due to personal commitment, and TCW 661 is present and awaiting the call from the chamber. He confirmed that to his best knowledge he has no relationship by blood or by law to any of the civil party or any of the three accused, namely Ingsari, Kilsampon or Nunjia. This witness already took an oath this morning. Thank you. President, thank you. The chamber receives the letter of waiver through his counsel from Ingsari dated 1st October 2012 to waive his direct presence in hearing the testimony of 10 witnesses and 6 civil parties, including TCW 661. And based on the medical report by the treating doctor at the Khmer Soviet Friendship Hospital dated 19 October 2012, that Ingsari is being treated at the General Treatment Department at the hospital, and as he requests to waive his direct presence of hearing the testimony of certain of witnesses and civil parties, and that he is being treated at the hospital, the chamber decides to hear the testimony of TCW 661 without the presence of Mr. Ingsari pursuant to Internal Rule 81.5. Court officer, could you invite the witness TCW 661 into the courtroom? President, good morning, witness. What is your name? President, witness, you may sit when you speak, but please wait for the red light on the console before you can speak, so that your voice will go through the audio system and can be translated or interpreted into Khmer, into English and French. Once again, what is your name? Witness. Good morning, Mr. President. My name is Sok Chen. Thank you. Question. How old are you, Mr. Sok Chen? Response. I am 67 years old this year. Question. Where is your current address and what is your occupation? Response. My current address is house number 13, group 32, Kampong Kro Bay Village, Swai Pao Commune, Bat Dambong District, Bat Dambong Province. Question. What is your current occupation? Response. I am a retiree. Question. What is your father's name? Response. His name is Sok Suk. He is deceased. Question. And your mother's name? Response. Her name is Jun Nuon. She is also deceased. Question. What is your wife's name? Response. Her name is Kruj Sarai. She is living with me. Question. How many children do you have? Response. I have 5 children. Thank you, Mr. Sok Chen. As reported by the greffier, that to the best of your knowledge, you have no relationship by blood or by law through any of the civil parties in this case, nor through any of the 3 accused, namely Nuon Chea, Ieng Sary, and Khieu Samphan. Is that accurate? Response. That is correct. Question. Also, as reported that you already took an oath before you appear before this chamber. Is that correct? Response. Yes. The chamber would like to inform you the right and obligation as a witness before this chamber. Mr. Sok Chen, as a witness before this chamber, you may refuse to respond to any question or to make any comment that would incriminate you. That is, if your response or your comment would incriminate you. And as a witness, you must respond to all the questions put to you by the parties or the chamber or the bench. And you must only speak of the truth that you have heard, have known, experienced, or observed directly in regards to the event related to the questions put to you by the parties. Do you understand your right and obligation as a witness? Response. Yes, I do. Question. Mr. Sok Chen, had you been interviewed by the investigators of the Office of the Co-Investigating Judges during the last few years? If so, how many times and where did it take place? Response: I was interviewed once at my house. Question: can you recall when it was taken place? Response: no, I cannot. Question: before you appear before this chamber, have you reviewed or read the written record of your interview with the investigator of the OCIJ in order to refresh your memory? Response: I have read a few times. Question: based on your ability and knowledge, can you confirm whether the written record of interview that you have read to refresh your memory reflect the accuracy and consistent with what you said during the interview with the investigator? Response: yes, it is accurate and consistent. Thank you. The prosecution, you are reminded that you will be given the floor first to question this witness. And the time allocation for both the prosecution and for the lead co-lawyers for civil party is only for this morning session. You may proceed. Wayne Hood. Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Mr. President and your honors. Good morning, everyone in and around the courtroom. Good morning, Mr. Sokchen. My name is Wayne Hood. I am from the Office of the Co-Prosecutors. I do have some questions for you. And if you do not understand my question, you may request to have it repeated through the President or directly to me. And Mr. President, I'd like to provide document E232/76 to the witness so that it will help him during the questioning by the prosecution. President: yes, you may do so. Court officer, could you deliver the document from the prosecutor to the witness? Thank you, says the prosecutor. Mr. Sokchen, you do not need to consult the document now. I will pinpoint the page or the portion of the document when I put the questions to you. My question is the following. After the 17th April 1975, what was your duty? Response: I was working as a staff member at a railroad company known as the Royal Railway of Cambodia. Question: my question is after the 17th April 1975 and not the period prior to that date. Response: I worked as a worker repairing railroad. Question: Who did you work under? Response: I worked under the control of the Khmer Rouge soldiers. Questioned: it was under the military control. Can you tell us the names of those military officers or personnel? Response: I worked under Ta Mom. Thank you. In question answer session number 7, which is highlighted in green on your document, how did you know that Tamom controls thousands of people, including children? How did you obtain such information? Response: he was in charge of all the people, including men, women, and children in that sector. Question: as you just stated, he controlled. Does it mean he forced people to work, or what was the circumstance? Response: he forced people to work and to study the politics of the party. Questioned: what about young children? Did Tamom engage them in political study, or did he force those young children to work, if you observe such a situation? Response: children under the age of 6 were allowed to stay at the children care center. However, who were about 6 years old, they would be forced to work in various locations. Thank you. We also have some questions that need you to clarify. For instance, if a train derailed, we would be killed. That is part of your response in question and answer session number 7. My question to you is, had any train derailed during the regime? And was anyone taken and killed for the train's derail? And 3, if you do not know the response to question 1 and 2, how did you learn such information? From whom? Response: I did not know about that, but we learned all that through the documents that we studied. We were warned that we had to be vigilant and not to have any train derailed, otherwise we would have been killed. Thank you. Also, in the same question-answer session, you used the word they, that they would have taken us for execution. Can you shed light on the word they? Who were they? Response. They here referred to Tamom and the soldiers who were his subordinates. Thank you. I have another question on this point. In question-answer session number 13, as I marked on the document before you, you stated before the investigator that you did not dare talk because you were afraid that you would be taken and killed. My question is the following. Did you ever see or hear that people who talked were killed? Response. No, I did not. But we learned that through our study session that we had to be careful of what we spoke. And if we said something which was not true, then we would be killed. Questioned. Who actually had the authority to decide that somebody had to be killed during that regime? At what level of the authority that could make such a decision? Response. I did not know the level of authority. However, the management was under the MOM, so he could decide whatever he wished to. My next question is related to food supply.
You stated that Tamom was in charge of several thousands of people, including children as young as 7. With regard to this number of people and the children, were the people in the people of the base, or were the newcomers, those evacuees from Phnom Penh? Response. Those people were surely the new people, the newcomers. They were evacuated all from Phnom Penh. None of them was the base people. Question. On the same point, my question is, there were a lot of people, several thousands. Could you tell the court, please, what the food ration would be like? Response. Food was not distributed equally. For example, at the work site, people would be offered some thick porridge, but at another location, then the porridge would be thinner. Question. Do you recall anything at all? Things that happened to the sick people? For example, the children or women who got sick, and how were these people addressed? Response. At that time, when people got ill, they would be sent to a hospital. Their parents would not be allowed to accompany them. And if anyone who was mature enough or an adult person and fell ill, then he or she would only be alone in the hospital without anyone accompanying him or her. Question. Can you please tell us about clothing? Response. People were wearing some torn clothes or any piece of garment they could grab that they could bring along with them during the evacuation. Question. I would like you to refer to the document again on question 11. I also have highlighted the portion so that it can help you get to the relevant portion quickly, conveniently. In question 11, as you already stated, the food ration was not adequate. Patients were not properly taken care of, and children and women worn the clothes that were not properly worn, and you said that Tamom had to report this directly. My question is, to whom he did so? Response. He reported to the upper echelon in Phnom Penh. Thank you. My next question, says the prosecutor, is: now, when it comes to the food, it was not adequate already to feed the several thousand people. Have you ever received any information whether Tamom had attended any study sessions at the upper echelon and that he would be lecturing in any meetings with the people at the base? Response. I don't know. I have no idea what lessons he learned. Question. I may also ask you for confirmation. On point number 11 or question 11, you said that the Tamom came to study in Phnom Penh, or Tamom attended study sessions in Phnom Penh. Can you please tell the chamber how you learned about this? Response. I learned about this during the course of my work at the railway, because I saw him taking went to Phnom Penh through the train. Question. After Tamom attended study sessions or received instructions in Phnom Penh, when he returned to the local area, did he teach you or pass on any information concerning economy, for example, to the people in your area, including you yourself? Response. When he returned from the study sessions he had attended, he would convene a meeting where workers and his subordinates would attend on a regular basis. Question. Can you please be more precise on the content of the studies he obtained from Phnom Penh? How or what were the subject matters of the study sessions he imparted into you when you met him? Response. During the study sessions, topic like strengthening the political stance would be taught or lectured. Question. What about subject like economy or food? How did he impart this subject matter to you and other people? Response. He would instruct us to focus on the core tasks and the work of the social work and production. However, the food remained the same. We were offered only porridge. Question. My apology. I would like to also ask you another question. You said that you were asked to improve production and then grow rice. What happened to the rice that had been harvested? Why people were only given porridge? Response. I do not know where the harvested rice could have been brought to. They could have been stored in the warehouses, because I knew that there were warehouses where the rice would be stored, but I do not know how it was handled. Question. I would like to skip questions concerning this economic session. I would like to move to the military communication instead. With regard to question 19, this portion is interrelated to your transfer of job to Posat. Rather to transport to be transported to a Liege location in Posat. My question is, who ordered such transfer and when? Response. Tamom came with a train from Battambang all the way to Posat to take me there. Question. In the Posat region, was Tamom in charge of that sector, or the sector was under the control of the military, according to your best recollection? Response. Tamom was in charge and the military was under his command. Thank you. At question number 18, here you stated before the investigators that the armed soldiers guarded the people. They would tell when and where to leave the train. How did you know soldiers guarded the people and looked after the well-being of the people? Did you hear that from somebody, or you hear that directly from someone telling you? Response. I saw this I witnessed this because I was one of the workers who had to work on the rail tracks, and I saw it happening. Question. Do you still recall when was it when you witnessed the situation? Response. I do not recall the date, but people had been evacuated and transported by train, and they would be also transported to Liege, where their biographies would be taken. Question. I would like to be putting more questions concerning more specific things. This time, not about Tamom. I would like to talk about the people on the train. Have you noted any young people, like children, elderly people, old and sick people on the train, and how was their condition? Response. There were different kinds of people from different age groups, old, young, sick people, and they were transported and left at the Liege location. They would be there for a few days or even a week before they could be transferred to other locations. Question. I want to ask a question also concerning the soldiers who guarded each train compartment. So how many soldiers would be deployed to guard people on each compartment of the train? Response. For each compartment, there would be 2 soldiers guarding the people or the passengers. Question. Do you recall having seen any Cham people being loaded on that train as well? Response. I have not seen the Cham people in particular, but I noted that people on the train were from all walks of life and they were mixed. They could have been Cham and other people. Question. I would like now to proceed to another question on the military structure, and I would like to skip some questions concerning the number of people on the cars of the train. And after people getting off the train, which unit was in charge of transporting the people from the train station to each respective location? Was the people, or were the people transported by the military only? Response. I do not remember or know this. I believe that those people were transported by both the military and by civilians because I sometimes saw military trucks coming to pick them. Question. Before people would be transported from Liège, I would like to refer to question number 23 for this. You stated in your response in question 23 that all people had their biographies made or checked. The question is, was the biography taken or checked at that location before people being transported, or whether such biography would be done or at a later date? I hope you understand my question. If not, you may ask me to repeat or rephrase. Response. For those who had been evacuated from Phnom Penh according to the order by Pol Pot, these evacuees were at a location where their biographies would be taken, and then they would be transported to Liège, where they would be sent further to other locations, or for example as far as Battambang. Question. So according to your statement and my understanding, if my understanding is correct, that the biographies would be taken first before people would be sent to different locations. Is that correct? Response. Yes, it is. Question. Thank you. Did you know what happened to the former Colonel soldiers and officers or officials after their biographies could have been made. Response. I was assigned to work in Swai Sisopon by Angkar, and I saw what happened to the soldiers who were transported by trucks and train. They were from Thailand, and I noted that they were fully geared. I saw them being loaded on trains and trucks, but I had no idea where they could have been transported to. It happened in Swai Sisopon location. Question. I think I have only final question to put to you before I cede the floor to my colleague to put further questions. The last question I would put to you is that you saw soldiers being transported on the trains, but my question is, do you know Tul Pochri? Response. No, I don't. I have never heard of this before. Prosecutor. I thank you very much indeed, Mr. Sok Chen, for responding to all the questions I put to you. And I thank you, Mr. President, and your honors for allowing me the opportunity to put these questions. I would like now to cede the floor over to my colleague.
Good morning, Your Honours. Good morning, Council, and good morning, Mr. Sok Chin. I'm going to ask you a few more questions as a follow-up to the questions you were asked by my colleague. And because you changed your place of work during the Khmer Rouge period, I want to see if we can first clarify where you worked at each stage. Now, in your statement in question and answer number 2, you said that before 1975 you were a train ticket seller and you were based in Muang Resay station in Battambang. And we heard you indicate earlier that you also were later in Svay Sisopon. So my first question to you is, when were you transferred from Muang Resay in Battambang to Svay Sisopon, or Seray Sisopon, if you can give us the exact name of the place?
Response. It was in 1967 when I started work. It was in Muang. In 1970, I was transferred from Muang Resay to Svay Sisopon of Seray Sopon.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. Is Seray Sopon in what is currently Banteay Meanchey province?
Response. Yes, it is correct.
And did you continue to work in that location until 1975?
Response: Yes, I did.
Now, according to your statement in question and answer number A4, when the Khmer Rouge took power, they banned ticket selling and you were reassigned to repair some railways. And you, of course, testified earlier that Ta Muom transferred you from Saray Sopon to work in Prasat. Can you tell us when you were transferred to Prasat? Was that in April 75 or was it later?
Response: It was in the aftermath of 1975. I believe it was a few months, 4 months or so after 1975, April 1975.
And if I understand correctly from your statement again in question and answer number 7, you indicate that you worked in the Trapeang Chon commune. If I'm correct, that's in the Bakan district in the Prasat province. Have I got that right?
Response: Yes, it is correct. I worked at Trapeang Chong location. I was in charge of repairing some railways for a stretch of 21 kilometers.
Thank you. Now, Ta Muom, you told us earlier, was in charge of that sector. Did I understand correctly that he was transferred together with you from Saray Sisopon? Did I understand that correctly?
At that time, the Mom was not there yet. The Mom only came after Khmer Rouge took control.
And can you tell us when was it, if I understand correctly, you arrived in Trapeang Chong about 4 months after the Khmer Rouge took power. If you recall, when did Ta Muom come to control that area?
Ta Muom was chief of sector and I was working at the Songkat level or commune level, and there were about 6 communes in that sector. And in that sector, in that Songkat or commune, I was responsible for a stretch of 21 kilometers of railway.
In the interest of time, we'll keep moving on. I just want to confirm that your group supervisor was someone called Ta Miek, and according to your statement, he was in charge of the commune. Is that correct?
That is not correct. Ta Miek was the chief of the commune. It's not at the village level, it was at the commune level. He was in charge of politics and other affairs, including the study sessions and the people's living condition, and as well as the stretch of that 21 kilometers of the railway.
Thank you. I think we were, in fact, discussing the same point, but there might be some issues with translation. Now, just moving forward a little bit to some of the events that you discussed with my colleague, I want to look at question and answer number 15 in your statement. And this is, I'll read a brief excerpt so that everybody has the information. You said the following: I saw trains twice a week. The train had 20 to 25 wagons, normally for transporting goods, and each wagon transported from 40 to 50 people. There were two stages of transportation. The first one was after April 75, in October, November, and December. People were transported from Phnom Penh. I want to discuss that particular transfer, if we could, in more detail. Now, do I understand correctly that it was in that period, October, November, and December, that you saw these trains with 20 to 25 wagons carrying people?
Yes, that is correct.
I know this was a long time ago, but do you recall whether this continued throughout October, November, and December? Did it continue for 3 months, or was it a shorter period or a longer period of time?
I could not recall it exactly, but it continued until December for that phase.
And do I understand correctly from your statement that you saw these trains while you were working in Trapang Chong in Prasat?
Yes, that is correct. I was working along the railway, and the train drove past and I saw it.
And when you told my colleague earlier that you saw men, women, and children, and you saw some sick people, were these the trains that you were describing?
Yes, that is correct. I saw those people on the train.
In your statement in question and answer number 18, you describe people who were guarding them on the trains as Pol Pot armed soldiers. How did you know that, or rather I'll rephrase that, did you know where these soldiers came from?
did not know where the soldiers came from, but I saw them on the train with their weapons. They were escorting those people, but I did not know for sure where they came or where they had been.
You also said in question and answer number 19 that the train in Persat, sometimes the train would stop on the road to Liek. Now, I just want to ask you first, did you see any of the trains that stopped in Persat yourself?
The train that transported the people, they did not stop at the provincial station, but they actually stopped at some destinations at the district or near the forest. I mean, they stopped at various distant stations, but not at the provincial station.
And were you able to see any of these trains as they stopped?
When they stopped at stations near the forest, I personally did not see it, but I heard about that through the train driver. I was told by the train driver. I personally only saw the train stop at Liek.
Now, if we move forward to Liek, this is what you said in your statement in question and answer number 19. In Liech, people would remain 1 week waiting to be transported in military and civilian trucks to other places. Now, you told my colleague earlier that you saw military trucks coming to pick up some of these people. Was that in Liech where you saw the trucks coming to pick people up?
Yes, I saw it with my own eyes. People were instructed to guard off and stay around the railway tracks.
How far is Liech from Trapang Chong, where you had been working?
I was working on a mobile unit. Sometimes I move around to another place to assist other group of workers so that the railway could be fixed on time for the train to travel through. But I cannot tell you the distance between these two locations.
And just to be sure that I understand correctly, is it correct that you saw the trains passing through in Persat at a number of locations, and then you saw them stop in Liech? Is that an accurate summary of what you saw?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. Now, the people, you mentioned earlier that you saw people disembark from the trains in Liège, and you told my colleague that sometimes they would wait for up to a week. This is what you said in your statement on this point also. Again, question and answer number 19. Quote, "No one could leave as they were guarded, and those who were sick would die there. If I can ask you, did you see any of the people that died while waiting at that location?"
I myself buried the dead bodies because the dead bodies along the railway tracks decomposed, so we had to bury those bodies.
If I can take one step back, the people that were waiting in this area in Liège, are you able to estimate approximately how many people at any one time? Was it 100? Was it 200? Was it several hundred? Was it less than that?
Each wagon could house 40 to 50 people, so for 20 wagons it could house 100 people, so you could do the calculation by yourself.
My maths are not very good at all, but 20 wagons would come to about 1,000 people. If we take the figures you gave us, does that sound accurate, about 1,000 people per train?
It is difficult to estimate the number of people on the train. Sometimes people were put, 40 or 50 people were put in each wagon, and what I saw was that each wagon was full of people. There were a mixture of old people, of children, and other people.
Now, you've told us that they were guarded in the train. And you've told us also that they could not leave during their waiting in Liège. In your statement, at question and answer number 17, you were asked, did these people look happy? And you said, no, they did not. Can you tell us a little bit more about the conditions of these people? What did you mean by when you said they did not look happy?
People who were evacuated at the time, I thought that they were given 1 can of rice per 10 people. They did not have much belonging, just some clothing and some Khmer real currency. They did not have sufficient food. So I could see that their facial expression showed that they were not happy with the condition.
Were you able to speak to any of them during that time?
No, I did not. Because I only minded my own business, I could only observe from my workplace.
Were people in your working units permitted to speak to either the soldiers or the civilians that were moving through Liech?
My role was to repair the railway track, so I did not dare ask them any question. I only tried to fulfill the task assigned to me by my superior. I did not go anywhere further from my workplace or went to ask them any question. I did not do that.
If I can ask you this to follow up, when you say you did not dare ask any questions, could you tell us why it was that you felt that you couldn't ask any questions? Was there a particular reason that you didn't dare to ask questions?
We needed only to mind our own business. If people were to ask questions, they would be asked by those people who were authorized by the superior to ask questions. But my role was only to work based on what I was assigned to and not to ask any question.
Was that an instruction that you received from Ta Muam or Ta Miek?
We engage in the study session every day, chaired by the moms, that we needed to focus only on the assigned work. Whatever was assigned to us, we did that. Whatever food was given to us, we ate that. And we were not allowed to protest or to demand for anything.
And were you told what might happen to anyone if they were to protest?
First time, that person would be criticized. For the second time, there would be a second criticism. And for the third time, the person would be sent for re-education. Some of my former colleagues went for re-education and they never returned.
Did you ever learn what happened to your colleagues who never returned?
I did not know. They went for re-education, but they never returned to our unit.
Thank you. Now, if we can return to the conditions of people that you've been describing for us, the evacuees. You told us that you buried some of the decomposing corpses yourself. Do you recall approximately how many corpses there were at Liege?
The corpses that I buried were those who died along the track, and because of the stink that we could not work, so we had to bury those bodies. But for those other corpses further from the track, we did not bury those bodies. I saw several of those corpses further from the tracks. They were covered along the rice dikes or along the road, but we did not bury those bodies. We only buried the one along the railway track.
Are you able to give an approximate number of how many bodies you saw in total at the tracks and also further in the fields? Approximately, how many bodies? Was it 10? Was it 5? Was it 20? If you're able to give us an estimate.
I could not give you an estimate. Sometimes I saw the dead bodies which were covered, and next day they were gone. And sometimes, some other days, I would see dead bodies somewhere else. So I could not give you a total number of those dead bodies.
Perhaps we can be more specific. How many did you personally bury?
I buried one body near the track, but I did not bury those other bodies further from the track.
Now, I may be asking you an obvious question, but just to be sure, for the record, how did you know that the bodies that you saw were the bodies of evacuees, people that had been transferred by train?
Because the area was quiet and people did not live around that area, only the evacuees passed through that area. I thought that the bodies could not be buried on time, as the family members of the dead bodies were sent to be placed in the cooperative. Because around that area it was vacant, no villagers living in that area.
Thank you. And if I can ask you a couple more questions on this location in Liege. In question and answer number 22, you say that you recalled that some of the people were forced to leave the train while others continued their trip towards Battambang province. If I can ask you first, where were these people taken, the ones that were forced to disembark from the train?
I did not know about the arrangement for those people. Sometimes people were disembarked in Liege, and sometimes those who were in one or two wagons still remained in the wagons for the train boarding toward Battambang province. So I did not know much about such an arrangement.
When you say that some of them were forced to leave the trains, do I take it correctly that it was the soldiers who were forcing them to leave, or was it someone else?
People who were forced to disembark in Leech or in other locations, they were under the control and order of the military. Only the military were in control. I never saw any civilian in control, and they were armed.
You then say in that same paragraph that the train would return to Phnom Penh to get other people and would return. So I just want to make sure I understood that answer correctly. Trains would go back to Phnom Penh or somewhere south and collect more people, and then they would come again through Prasat. Is that the process that you saw?
Yes, that is correct, as I stated in that statement.
You told my colleague that Ta Muom's soldiers, or rather that Ta Muom controlled all the soldiers in the area. Did his soldiers take any part in assisting this transfer of people through Prasat?
Response: No, the soldiers were on the trains all the way from Phnom Penh, and the soldiers had to return when the train came back to Phnom Penh to bring more people. So these soldiers would be seen on the trains, carriages on every trip back and forth.
Did Ta Muom or Ta Miek give you any instructions or information about these trains that were going to be coming through and carrying people?
Response: No, he didn't. I think Tamong and Tamek did not know this about this, because I saw this situation, what happened, only along the rail tracks. The President interrupts. Thank you, Mr. Co-Prosecutor, and thank you, Mr. Witness. Since it is now appropriate moment for the adjournment, the Chamber will adjourn for now, and the next session will be resumed by 10 to 11. Court officer is now instructed to assist the witness during this adjournment. Court is adjourned.
សូមក្រោកឈរ